So I'm Stefan Batifol. I'm a developer relation engineer at Wolt, and I drink my coffee with like oat latte in the morning after I grind my beans. And yeah, I have my own coffee. Love it.
Hello and welcome everyone to the MLOps.community podcast. My name is Dimitri Os and I am your host for today. And I'm not with anybody, but I am with somebody that likes to come on here and be a co-host. This time he is my one and only guest, and I get to talk to him all about the internal platform that they have created at Wolt. He was an ML platform engineer and since has graduated, per se, to an internal developer advocate. So we get into how he goes and advocates for the platform use and how they allow the teams and the data scientists at Wolt to use whatever they want. And that makes his job real interesting because he has to advocate real hard for them to use the platform that he created. I loved hearing about all of the nuts and bolts on the platform and how he actually brings the data scientists onto the platform and creates the internal community of users. And then we get into a little bit of a tangent on the tech scene in Berlin and how fun Berlin can be. So hopefully you enjoy. Let's get into the conversation. And last thing before we go, in case you haven't already, it would mean the world to me if you like, subscribe, review on whatever platform you are listening to this on. And a huge win, absolutely huge win, would be if you could share this with just one friend that you think would find it interesting. So now let's get into the conversation.
Let's go, because I have to go see Barbie at 8:15 tonight.
Oh, who are you going with?
I'm going with a friend of mine, actually.
All right. So I heard it was actually really good, and
Say,
yeah,
I'm excited
I did not
about it.
expect it. I did not expect it to be that good, but I was listening to a podcast, funny enough, Smartless, about the director. They interviewed the director, and they were just praising her on how good she is with scripts and how good she is with making scripts sound natural.
Okay,
So
let's see.
yeah, you're not doing the Oppenheimer on top of it though?
No, tonight it's only Barbie.
Only
So,
Barbie.
So already, I'm getting old. I already struggle to like stay awake in the cinema.
Oh, that is hilarious, man.
So yeah.
That is so good. Well, dude, you're doing all kinds of cool stuff at Wolt.
Yeah.
And you were previously on the platform team, right? That's when we first met. You were killing it on there and having lots of fun giving talks at like KubeCon about what you all are doing on the ML platform team. But now you've since joined a different team, which is a team that you made up. You created your own team, basically. Tell me about how this happened.
Yeah, basically creating my own role now at Wolt. So yeah, I've been at Wolt for almost 3 years and was the first machine learning engineer and working on the machine learning platform. It was fun. But after a while, there's like so much YAML you can do up until you go to a burnout or something. And I was starting to be a bit annoyed at like all the platform work and everything. And also like, I gave talk at KubeCons. I helped a lot of data scientists, to just try to make their life easier. So I would point out like, we should have a DevRel. Like we should have an internal DevRel at Wolt because we create our own machine learning platform. But the way I see it is that, at least my opinion and my view, is that we compete against AWS directly on the ML platform because we don't force anyone. Yeah, like SageMaker and the whole they all offer, because we don't force anyone to use our platform. They can still use it. So we're like competing against it. So our data scientists have to be like aware of what we can do with it. And I'm trying to make their life easy, think of like documentation, think of getting started, think of like tutorials, like basically DevRel, but it's just internal.
So what does DevRel mean to you? What is that?
Very good question. I had to think so hard for it because I had to create the job ad as well.
Oh, I bet.
So at least for me like there's some kind of community we have at Wolt, which is our small data scientist, and it's for already like to take care of that, to like foster it, to really make sure that they're all happy and we can share knowledge as well. That's one idea. The other one is also to make sure that onboarding guides are good, like every documentation is good. If you have questions or anything, we should have talk about it. And it's also really important about the developer experience. I don't know, I care a lot about things being simple, and I hate gatekeeping. So I'm always like trying to explain things in a simple way, even if like things are supposed to be complex. So yeah, that's really try to make sure like, our whole platform is running on Kubernetes, for example.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that data scientists should have to know about Kubernetes if they use the platform. If they want to, they can. If they don't want to, they shouldn't have to. So yeah, it's those things. And it's also then talking at conferences a bit, but that's the part that people think we always do all the time. And I'm like,
tweeting.
No.
Becoming an influencer.
Yeah. Gonna take selfies now, like every day at the office.
Yeah, exactly. Making everybody get jealous.
Exactly.
Of how you don't work at all.
Exactly.
You just enjoy Volt's food deliveries.
Yeah, but like I go to all of our countries, it'd be like, oh yeah, I have to go to Israel for a conference, obviously.
Yeah, and talk to the teams there. And for those who aren't listening, Wolt is basically the DoorDash of Europe.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We go from Norway to Japan now. We're live in 25 countries.
Wow.
Actually, now it's Iceland to Japan. I have to change it. So,
wow, yeah, even more north.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not only food delivery, right? That's the other thing. It's like not only delivering restaurant food, it's delivering like groceries.
Yeah, like we started as food delivery, and now like we kind of deliver everything depending on the country. Like in Finland, when I was living there, we could deliver Christmas trees for Christmas. Also jewelry. Like I've seen jewelry pieces that are worth more than 2,000 euros on Wolt. But yeah, it's like more than food delivery now. Also, yeah, groceries. In I think all the markets.
So lots of like estimated time of delivery use cases, lots of real-time use cases, I imagine, that you are having to support with the ML platform, and you're hoping the data scientists can level up on. What does the actual platform look like that you're going around and evangelizing? And like, why should anybody use it, I guess? Give us our pitch.
First, it's amazing, no bias.
Yep, you sold me. That's all I needed to hear.
So also, yeah, one of the thing we have with ML platform is that it's fully open source. So we use open source tools, not because it's free, because Wolt believes in open source a lot, and we also contribute to open source. It's not only using it. And then, yeah, the whole stack for now is Flight for like ETL, data transformation and everything. That was created at Lyft back then. Then we have the good old ML flow in the middle. It's still here. It's a part of every tech stack almost. And then we have
Cellular. True. Yeah, they got in early there. And they got stuck in there. That is so true. And
there's also one thing, like I think those articles stop now, but those ML flow versus Kubeflow, at one point I just can't see them anymore.
I think people just got sick of both of them.
Yeah.
So nobody cares. Everybody's like, I don't give a fuck about either of these. Get them out of my life, please.
Yeah, the thing they have in common is flow in the name. And that's it.
Flow and lots of hatred on the developer experience side of things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess the reason it was so popular probably was because how painful it was to use them. I mean, ML Flow less so than Kubeflow, but that's it's up for discussion, right?
Yeah, I guess like Kubeflow for me is like, I always sell myself as the hate club of Kubeflow. Like even at conferences, people always ask me like, oh, why didn't you go with Kubeflow? And it's like, have you tried using it? It's like, and I really like what they did actually, like the idea, I really like the idea. It's more like the execution, like if I'm a bit more serious, like I was the ML platform trying to deploy something, and I tried to use it and then I was struggling.
What did you struggle with?
Like just to like run the TSL, like compile everything, like those things. And I was like, okay, like you have to learn the whole language and also how it works exactly. And I felt like it's not that I'm like amazingly smart, but if I'm the one pushing for it and I'm struggling, imagine the data scientist, they'd be like, What is that?
That's like the whole reason the MLOps community grew in 2020 when all these data scientists were trying to figure out Kubeflow. That was it. They came into the MLOps community and they were like, what is going on with Kubeflow? Does anyone know what I can do to make this easier on me? And then people were like, you should learn Kubernetes. And poor data scientists, man. Then they became SREs instead of data scientists.
Exactly.
But well, you're talking about Kubeflow pipelines, right? Or are you talking about the whole package?
No, it was mostly Kubeflow pipeline, and KServe was not a thing back then. It was like they only like separated it. I don't know, like a year and a half ago or something.
Yeah. It wasn't too long ago.
So yeah, back then it was like the whole, but it was mostly pipelines, you know, and I tried to run things in parallel, and I just like, I was like really struggling. And then I think back then we were like evaluating different things, but we really wanted it to run on Kubernetes. And then we went with Flight. I won't lie, like it's not like it was easy with Flight, you know, like because back then they were still young as well. Well, they're still fairly young project. But yeah, like, there were a lot of bugs and stuff, but they've been really helpful. And yeah, if you write Python, then you basically don't have to change your code, you know. So that was the main thing. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm hyped about.
So it was like Kubernetes, Python, match made in heaven. Let's go with that for our pipelines.
Exactly.
But are you, like, break it down for me, because this is the ML platform. Is there a data platform underneath that you're dealing with or you're interfacing with? And how much say did you have in how that gets created?
Yeah, so before I joined, there was a whole data platform, which is Airflow. I mean, we have Snowflake as a warehouse. And then we had Airflow for all those pipelines. And we had a lot of ML things actually running on Airflow. The only problem is that once you do ML, then you install CUDA, and then everything is 10 gigabytes. So, so it worked quite well. Like it's, Wolt is like 6 years old now or something.
Yep.
And those things were running for like 2 years. So it's also like, it was not optimal, but it was working with Airflow. And if you understand how Airflow works, like how to, like with the DAG definition and everything, then it's not too bad. But just at one point we were like, let's have something else. And now we have nothing running on Airflow. At least like
nothing?
No ML workflow. Let me rephrase.
Okay, in the ML side of things, all right.
Yeah, ML side is everything's removed. But yeah, like we go to like Snowflake to Airflow, and then we have like some nice dashboards. Other places, like those Looker dashboards, they look amazing. I tried to write LookML, wanted to I was like, no.
Didn't work out for you, no. But sorry, I cut you off. You didn't explain everything. So ML flows in the middle, but then what is deployment and what is like observability, all that?
So for our deployment, we use Cellular core, which is also open source. And for those who don't know, it's like basically based on a model artifact create microservices on Kubernetes, and it supports a lot of libraries, and it like creates endpoints you would need to create yourself. It like adds metrics, it supports shadow deployment, A/B testing, like things you would like need at one point, but then if you were to do it yourself, you have to write a lot of code.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want the other platform to have to write the same code all over again, or to create something central if I had to avoid it, because I'm extremely lazy. So, I'm like, if anyone has done it for me, then I'm happy.
But yeah.
So that's what we're using. And it's the one that I've been praising the most, actually. It's my favorite tool. I know like other people in the team, sometimes they're like, And I must say it's the one that I like the most, because it's like, it's really my vision of things. Like, you just define a model, the library you use to train your model, and then behind the scene, it creates so many things. So data scientists, if they don't have to think of, the routes, like the monitoring, the streaming, shadow deployment, those things, they don't have to think about those if they don't want to. And that's what I like.
There's the idea of, well, I guess observability is baked into it. Is it, what is it, Alibi?
Yeah, there's Alibi.
Alibi
as
yeah.
well.
That's a funny name. I always get it confused with Alibaba for some reason, but yeah, it's the Alibi.
Yeah, they have those. We don't use those yet, to be honest. I kind of feel like.
But you're doing some kind of monitoring or no?
Yeah, we do have monitoring, but it's like you have monitoring on performance wise, but we don't use Alibi. It's just like we compare the ground truth With the predictions, we do like everything is pushed to Kafka on our side. And then we have some nice dashboards where we compare everything. But we just don't do it like in real time, basically. Yeah. Because we don't really need it just for this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, break down the real time, because if you're doing all of these estimated time of arrival type things, that needs to be real time, right? But like how real time
exactly.
does it need to be?
Yeah, it's always the thing. So for us, I think it's around 5 minutes. Well, 5 minutes late for now. And like we're working on improving it, that I can't really go into the details on here because that's the most important part of Wolt, basically. But we are like around 5 minutes, which is like fine. Like in most cases, like things don't really change. Like traffic is predictable, except if you have something like an accident. But then I think we have like data from different partners as well, like Google Maps, OpenStreetMaps, like we use those as well. So it's also like a lot of non-ML things.
Yeah, you're getting tipped off about that.
Yeah.
And Confluent is in there somewhere, or Kafka? Sorry, maybe not Confluent.
Kafka, yeah. Yeah, Kafka, yeah.
How is that being used?
So Kafka is, well, almost everything we get from the app, like we push everything, all the app is pushing everything, and then we use Kafka, and then we have the features for some ML models. They're coming through Kafka directly, like those that real time, for example. Like,
Are you using Flink to transform them?
No, not yet, at least. For now, it's like a whole Kafka. And yeah, been a process.
Yeah.
We're really looking into Flink, actually, to transform that. But it's like we're only starting on this. There's nothing using it.
Yeah.
Like we already started like deploying Flink as well in the clusters.
One thing that I'm fascinated by is what you originally said on you want the developer experience to be nice for these data scientists, because at the end of the day, these are the users, and so you're trying to champion and advocate for the data scientists to use this. What is it that you're telling them? Like, what's the selling points when you go to them and you're like, hey, there's this incredible tool that we've created and it's using all of these technologies, and they're like, I don't really care what technologies it's using. What does this mean for me?
Yeah, I think usually how I start, so it depends on where they are. It's going to depend on, do they want to train a model, or do they want to deploy something they've trained on, on their laptop or something? If they want to train a model, usually one of the best selling points I have is that, you run train it on 25 countries. How are you going to do that? Are you going to use SageMaker and then you go through a list and then you do them one by one? Are you going to try to make that in parallel by writing some Spark? I don't know, like what do you have in mind? And then I'm like, yeah, you know what? We have flight. You had a decorator on your function. You had dynamic decorator. And that's it.
Wait, and
like
so
then
they can train a model with 25 countries by just saying like...
Yeah, you just say like, oh yeah, this workflow is going to be a dynamic workflow, for example. And then you give the list of model where then can be dynamic that you can change, like you read the list. And then you'd be like, please loop through that list, train 25 models because we have 25 countries. One example, we have one model per city. We have a lot of cities. So they do that, for example. They train over like each city. They don't even know how many they have because they don't have to define anything. So like one selling point that I have usually, it's like, yeah, okay, like if you need like some real training and some real model, probably want that. Well, we'll have that. Like it's out of the box. Same for like resources. You want some GPUs, you want some crazy things, well, we have them. So maybe you can go on SageMaker and do your thing.
Good luck trying to get some
But it's
GPUs
like, there's no support. Like you're on your own.
Like have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
From about GPUs.
So
that's Get in line on their GPU.
Yeah, you're gonna wait for a bit, and then during the daily tomorrow, be like, I waited yesterday.
But your GPUs, what? You just have GPUs running all the time? Sounds expensive.
No, we don't. Like we have some GPUs running all the time, but we have like autoscalers. So then, like when no one is using them, then they go down and then they go back up. We also don't use like 800 or something. Like we're not doing like LLM trainings, for 6 weeks or something. So
Not yet. Those data scientists are going to come back and they're going to be like, actually, we need to train one big model instead of these 25 or million models per city, you know?
Yeah. Actually, I have a call tomorrow to talk about LLMs, so let's see.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the obvious next question is like, how have the data scientists started asking you about that?
Yeah, like it happened. And the good thing is that, well, we don't really need to do anything special, except like maybe have some specific resources or like more GPUs or something. But the whole platform can just take it, like can just scale things up. The only problem is that sometimes, we scale things up and AWS is like, hey, we don't have GPUs available in Europe. You gotta wait. And then it's like, okay. But otherwise for LLMs on our sides, we have a whole like AI gallery internally as well that is like showcasing the capabilities of the platform. Like we have Stable Diffusion running internally. We have like some LLMs running internally. And it's just for the sake of, oh, look, the ML platform can do those. Okay, it might be a bit of work, obviously, but it's possible. Like you don't have to worry about the capabilities of the ML platform. So,
But it feels like the current use cases that you're using machine learning for are like the exact opposite of what you would want to use LLMs for.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's like, if we were to use LLMs and stuff, I still think we could, but for like support, but not support to our consumers, but more like internal support, like when we have our customer support people, and then, like to tag, for example, the messages that are coming, or, to maybe suggest them things. I think that, I don't know if we would, but that's, at least in my opinion, what we could use it for. Because,
that makes sense.
For direct support, I mean, Wolt support is also famous for the quality. At least that's
good
what
quality
people
or
tell
bad
me.
quality?
Good quality. So at least that's what people tell me, So and then they come to me, they send me WhatsApp, and they're like, hey, my food is late. And I'm like, cool, let me go there and get it for you.
Like, no, you should have told them, wait 5 minutes because the ETA probably hasn't updated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it feels like there's a ton of, I imagine there's probably a lot of product engineers out there at Wolt that are trying to figure out like, oh, okay, cool. We could probably incorporate some LLMs into this piece of the business.
Yeah.
And that it feels like the data scientists are probably thinking about that stuff too. But right now, all you care about is, can we support that? And you've already proven that out. So you just got to go and talk to whoever it is in the company to show them that you can do that.
Exactly. Like on our side, ML platform wise, we were pretty good. Then it just depends on like, what do we want from a business point of view and everything. Because also, with LLMs, like the big problem there is usually is that the latency. You like as a customer, like it's cool when I use ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, it's cool. But then like as a customer, I don't really want to wait.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So it's like, how do we deal with that? Also, like, what if suddenly the model starts dreaming, like it starts
Dreaming.
saying, oh, yeah,
yeah,
the delivery is in, I don't know, Norway, even though you live in Germany. You're like, yeah, cool.
that sounds about right.
So,
yeah.
So it's also like those things. But yeah, I think for internally, I think we will. For the rest, let's see. Let's see. Tomorrow I'm going to meet data scientists to talk about it, and let's see if they have ideas. I think we will use it, but it's also like the thing, where I was like, I don't think it's going to replace like every human being, and it just depends on how you use it. It can be a complement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely. So, dude, how often are you getting feedback from data scientists or users of the platform, and then you know the platform so well now, you go and you just update the platform, or you look at trying to update it and incorporate their feedback?
So we have a lot of feedback because we receive a lot of feedback on Slack as well. But they're just like really nice. Like, they'll be like, I'll try to do that. Is it possible to do it on the ML platform? Or maybe like the doc is outdated. That's also a big problem. We write documentation, we change the whole ML platform that is completely outdated. And you're like, let's go. But so yeah, we have that feedback, and then also every 2 weeks, I meet with data scientists. So then we can also like showcase other cool things that other people have done. Like that's part of the community work. Sorry. So like, yeah, like, I don't know, they worked and they deployed models. Like they train models on like all of the countries. They use GPUs like crazy. Look how cool it is. You can do that as a showcase. And I like to do it like that because then I'm not the one selling it. It's our users selling it. And then they sell it to other users and then they work together. And then I'm basically done for work, you know?
You just sit back, light up a cigar, put your feet on the table.
Exactly.
You say my work here is done.
No, obviously not. But that's like some kind of idea was also like we try to not always be present on Slack. And we try like all other users to like, we leave them the time to like reply to other users as well, because otherwise people become ML platform dependent.
Yeah.
And I don't really want that.
And you just become more of a support channel.
Exactly. And then you become the bottleneck, you know, to be like, oh yeah, we were waiting on the ML platform because of blah, blah, blah. So it's also like something, it's really hard to balance actually, you know, it's like, yeah, how much support do you offer and before you become a support team. So it's a thing. But we try, you know.
Well, so another thing for people who do not know, Wolt was bought by DoorDash, right? And we've had Hayne on the podcast, the head of the ML platform for DoorDash. I also got to hang out with him last time I was in San Francisco.
Damn.
We had a blast. It was so much fun, man. The guy just cracks me up. He was making me laugh. Best story ever is we went to the, what was it? We went to the Mother Duck, so the like DuckDB, the paid version of DuckDB. They had a launch party when we were there, and we went to their launch party, and they gave us shirts when we were walking in. And so they asked, what's your size? And you filled out your shirt size. And so they asked Hayne, and he was like medium. Then they asked me, and I was like large. Hayne looked at me. He was just like, large? What are you talking about? You're going to wear it as a night shirt? And I was just like, dude, that was kind of a diss. I think that's funny, but I don't know how I feel about that. I crack up every time I put that shirt on and I wear it not to sleep in. I think about him and like, now I got to go hit the gym and just fill into that shirt.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that can be a goal of yours, you know, to be like, oh my God, I really want to fit it in.
That's it. So I can prove Hayne wrong. But it is not a night shirt. It is a day shirt, Hayne.
Yes.
So anyway, the reason I brought him up was because when he came on the pod, and DoorDash's ethos is incredible on how their platform is doing some amazing stuff. And I think I know that you two talk quite a bit.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they mention that they do a lot is the user surveys. So I'm wondering if you're doing any of those, and if so, how are you collecting feedback from users, and what are you doing to get that?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I have to work on actually as part of the new role, because we never had those before. And yeah, it's like we really want to collect surveys and make sure that people are happy. And then it's probably going to be divided in like different sections. But then the problem with that is that people have to reply to it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you always create it and you're so proud, and then you have 3 replies.
Trust me, dude, I know. But I think at the end of the day, if you can basically create the culture of it, the more that you do it, the more often it becomes a normal thing and people get used to doing it. And then if you see that there are quick wins where, okay, I just filled out this survey and I said XYZ, and then I see that the platform team listened to me and they incorporated that feedback, and now I don't have that problem. It's like, hell yeah, I'm going to fill out the next survey because I'm going to tell them more stuff that's happening to me, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's like, I like that idea of having like those quick wins to like gain the trust of people. It's how I started at Wolt. I was like, I need a quick win so that when we send and go and making the deployment easier. But then like for our users, one thing that I like to do is that sometimes they give us feedback on the platform, and I'm like, oh, why don't you create a PR? Like we can even do it together if you want. And then they're really happy because they contribute to the platform directly. You know, and then they don't see us as those like, I don't know, like platform gods or something. And then they're like, they feel like, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to use the platform for sure. I created one PR. And I'm like, yes, let's go.
That is it. Now they're part of the team. It's like, this is your platform too.
Exactly. Oh, by the way, your support shift is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Be like, yeah.
I expect you to be answering questions in Slack from 9 till 4. And make sure we have an ETA, or what is it? Or SLAs?
Yeah, it's like the SLO and SLA, like, gotta reply to this.
That's classic. But I also love the story, and I wanted to bring it up because for me, it was just so clear how cool evangelizing and getting out there and giving talks actually provides value to your company, and how cool it is to do that. So you mentioned to me, I think last time I was in Berlin for the meetup, that the last like 3 or 4 people that you hired on the platform team all came inbound because they saw one of your talks, whether it was at the MLOps.community Meetups, or it was at a KubeCon, or it was online somewhere. It was all inbound because of that, and they saw how cool the platform was, and they thought, well, now I want to work with that guy, and I want to work on those problems.
Yeah, exactly. It happened with exactly. Look, I think the last 3 or 4 people were hired. I mean, we also went from a team of 3 to 7.
Nice.
So it's actually everyone were hired. But they've all been like, oh yeah, it was cool to see those videos, or like the talk you also shared, and also the blog post. Actually, like people, like I also wrote a blog post, and people saw it and they like the tone of the blog post as well, because I tried to also make it like humbling and not be like, look at how fucking cool I am. Because it's also like, try to share those, and it helped to either attract people or convince them, basically, because they were like, actually, like the way you describe the platform and the idea you have to make life of data scientists better and easier is usually something that they all care about. So it's like, I think one member of the team, he contacted me after my first KubeCon talk, and then I was like, oh, sorry, we're not hiring. And then a year later, we opened positions, and then he applied a year later because he was like, I was still keen. So I was like, not this. And
dude, that's some strong inbound.
That's
really cool.
So it helps. It's been really helpful actually to give those talks and meetups as well. And like also when we host meetups, like it's one thing when we host the MLOps.community Meetups, which happen from time to time, is that, people come to the office and they're like, wow, it's like such an incredible office. That it helps. But then it's also like just talking to the engineers, because you can have a nice office and everything else sucks.
And boring work. Yeah. For those who don't know too, I will preface this with the office that Wolt has in Berlin is on the river, and I guess you just bought the whole office from WeWork. It used to be a WeWork, and then you converted it all from WeWork into Wolt's office.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly.
And it is right across the river from kind of famous nightclub. Nightclub is a funny word to say in Berlin because it's not only at night that the clubs are going on.
Weekend clubs?
Yeah, a weekend club. I had the experience, and I swear to God, this was when I was like 19, and I was going to Berlin for my first time. I went to that club. Do you know, what's it called? It's something river or something. What is the club called?
There's so many. There's Oppertoxe, which is the boat.
No.
Then there's Club Visionaire.
No.
Watergate?
That's it. Watergate. It had something to do with water, river, whatever.
Watergate.
So I went there, and it was getting late. It was getting really late, and the sun was starting to come up over the water. And this was the first time that I ever had the experience that as I was then walking out, and this was on a Sunday morning at probably like 8 or 9 in the morning, I saw people that looked super fresh and like they had just woken up, and they were going to the club as like their morning ritual or routine. Some people go to brunch. These people, they go to the club on a Sunday morning. And so I thought that was fascinating. They just wanted to dance to techno at 9 in the morning on a Sunday.
It is. Actually, it's quite fun sometimes to do it on a Sunday, to do like a day party. It's a very different vibe to the night.
Yeah.
Very different crowd as well. But it can just be fun, like you go there on the Sunday morning and you leave, I don't know, like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. It's quite nice, like the next day you feel good.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you party the whole night, sometimes the next day, and even the day after, you're like, oh my God.
Now, these days, definitely, I'm out for a week.
Yeah.
Those days, it was a different story. And so that Watergate, I remember when I was at the MLOps.community Meetup in the Wolt office, and I saw that building, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that is the building that I went to. And when we passed it, after that, after the meetup, I went and I cruised around and I checked, and it totally was. And so lots of fun memories. Anyway, that was a complete tangent from the platform that Wolt has. One thing that I wanted to dive into too is, speaking of Berlin and speaking of the culture that they have there, I think it's fascinating to get your opinion on the tech hub that Berlin is becoming, and what you've seen just in the, I guess you've been there for what, almost 3 years now?
Oh, in Berlin? No, I've been here for a bit more than 1 year. I was in Finland before.
Okay. So in the over 1 year, what made you go to Berlin? What do you think about this tech scene? It feels like there's meetups happening all the time there now, and there's all kinds of cool tech companies. What's your take on it?
Yeah, so yeah, for the context, I was working for Wolt before in Finland, and I left Finland because I was missing the tech hub part actually of city. Before that, I was living in Paris, and I was missing that part. So then we have an office in Berlin, and I was like, okay, let me move to Berlin to go back to the tech hub. And then I moved to Berlin in April 2022, right after COVID restrictions and everything ended in Berlin. Everything was timed. I was like,
perfect timing too.
And then it was like, okay, like the city used to be a big tech hub. It's still a big tech hub, but it used to be like a lot of meetups, a lot of things happening. And I kind of felt like, after COVID, like a lot of meetups died. People moved on. People moved out of Berlin as well. And I was like, okay, I want to create those meetups again. I want to do meetups in the city because I learned a lot from meetups when I was younger. When I was a student, I was good to meet up in Paris. I learned a lot from there. So I was like, I want to do those again. And then we started talking to organize the MLOps community one in Berlin. We were, I don't know if we were the first ones to organize meetups again, but we were like among the first ones to really kick the scene again.
Yeah.
And now there are like meetups, there are like 3 meetups per week. And like I can really feel like Berlin coming back on that side. Also, I feel like that's just my opinion, but everything is focused on San Francisco at the moment. I mean, US and San Francisco in particular. And I feel like for Berlin, it can be a quick win, to be like, if you have a company or companies that are investing probably still in San Francisco, but still investing a bit in Berlin, you can win so much for spending, I don't know, like a tenth of it,
People are sleeping on Berlin, man. That is very true. They don't realize, as far as tech hubs go, I fully agree. I do worry though, and I hope this doesn't happen, is that too many tech people come to Berlin and then it loses the Sunday morning party at 9 a.m. vibes.
Yeah, it's already happening. I mean, I'm also part of the problem on that one. I moved to Berlin as a tech person.
Start wearing Patagonia jacket. All of a sudden.
Like the orders, they sent us like jackets, and they're like Patagonia jackets, and I'm like, no, I can't wear that. It's like
it doesn't work in Berlin. You can't do that. You definitely cannot do that unless you DJ on the side. You can't move to Berlin as a techie. I think it's just a bad idea. So, dude, before you go to Barbie, one thing that I wanted to ask about was Kubernetes was like it was a deal breaker for you. You had to be using that.
Yes.
And it feels like you're very much bought into the Kubernetes lifestyle and workflows and ethos and all of that good stuff. What are some hard parts about creating a platform on Kubernetes specifically for machine learning that people should be aware of?
Yeah, I think the first one is all about if you don't want people to learn about Kubernetes, like what is a pod, what is a deployment, what is a kind, what is blah, 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 blah. It's actually quite hard to abstract everything away. You have to make sure all the logs are available. You have to make sure okay, I don't want data scientists to have to add some labels so they can get GPUs, like those things. There's so many annotations, like Kubernetes is a lot of annotation based things. And I'm like, I ask our infra team and they're like, yeah, just this annotation. I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to say that to my data scientists. So how do I do that? It's like, that's the first thing. Then also like, how are you going to share resources? Because usually they are, per namespace. With Flight, they do it per project and per domain, so they are like abstracts a lot of things away. But yeah, like how are you gonna allocate resources as well to your users? Like, are they gonna compete for GPUs? Are they gonna compete for memory or whatever? And then the last one is data. That what's good is like when you use SageMaker, you can just like dump everything. Like with Kubernetes, it's a bit more tricky because where do you put the data? As like that's one thing you usually have to think about. We use Snowflake heavily, so we just read from Snowflake, put everything back in Snowflake, and we're like, we don't think about that. We don't care.
You don't do anything on Kubernetes, because actually that's funny that you mentioned that. One of the other communities I started back in 2020 was the Data on Kubernetes community. And it was all about, hey, can we do stateful workloads on Kubernetes?
Yeah.
Is it possible to do that now? And so you just circumvented that whole thing and you said, we're not going to worry about it. We're not going to try and figure that out.
I was like, it's one of the things where, I remember, and it's Bart that is running it now, right? Yeah. And I remember like seeing talks about it and everything. And I'm like, that's cool. But just if I can just avoid it, I'm happy.
So you figured out a way to make sure that you wouldn't have to go through that headache no matter what, huh?
Exactly. It's kind of the thing for now. It's like, we don't have that on our clusters. And then for the rest, those are the main things. It's also like, how do we have different clusters, depending on the environment and everything. So it's really like how to make it easy for data scientists. And I don't know if you know, there's a specific tool which is called K9S, which is my Lord and Savior. I always praise it.
Yeah. What is this tool?
It's called K9S, and it's a tool that runs in your terminal, but it makes Kubernetes very visual. You don't have to remember like those very hard commands. I use it every day. Every time I introduce it to a data scientist, they fall in love with it, and they're like, "Oh my god, I don't need to remember those commands." And it's like, it's an amazing tool. So. It's like,
and it makes it visual just by like the YAML file that you're writing.
No, it's more like you can see the cluster, and then like if you want to have pods, then you just see the names, and then like on your keyboard you can use the arrows to like browse the resources. You can check logs by just pressing enter, and then like it's like you have to learn like a couple of like shortcuts on your keyboard. But once you do, it's like, I swear, like they every data scientist, once I introduce it to them, they never go back to the terminal.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. And how much are you interacting with the SREs to make sure like the platform has the right uptime or it just doesn't go down? And are you getting pinged, or are the SREs, like,
No.
do you have to go on call?
So it depends on, so for training, for now, like we don't have, everything, like we still have models deployed. So, like if the training fails, then it's fine for like at least a couple of days. But then for models that are deployed, we do have on call, but it's not ML platform specific, no data scientist, because, my opinion is that, it's a machine learning model, running, but it's just a piece of software, and then once it's deployed, it's just a piece of software. So you should just treat it as a piece of software. So it's just our normal on-call rotation. That is like checking it, like, it's a silent deployment instead of being a deployment, but everything is the same, like they just check like, what's up with the deployment, is everything fine, is it maybe because of Kafka, is it maybe because of the database? It's usually those things,
But as far as the ML platform itself,
we have SLOs and SLIs for the ML platform, like making sure that, the ML platform is always available. It's like, I think it's like 99.95% we have for the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then, otherwise we don't have on call for the ML platform directly. At least not for now.
And how much are you interfacing with the SREs? are they coming in there and helping you with that? Or is it something that the platform team needs to take full ownership of?
So we do it, as I'd say, the other way around. I used to be a member of the SRE squad as part of the machine learning platform. And then we basically have an SRE squad where, like, you know, we have the data ops team. Then they send someone to the SRE squad. Then, like, you know, defend the data ops platform and everything and be like, okay, for data ops, those are SLIs and SREs. It was the same for me for the ML platform. Now I switch roles to someone else is doing it. And that's the way we do it. We don't have an SRE team. We have the squad, and then people are coming from different teams. They assemble together. They're like really happy fusion, and and it's more like, okay, and then that's the way we do it.
Dude, this is awesome. I am gonna let you get to your Barbie showing, and
Yes,
I appreciate you coming on here, chatting with me. It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you again in Berlin.
Yes, definitely. See you and thank you.